We are going to be recording today's session so we can share it afterwards. Just please be aware of that. Last year, Solent Mind supported more than 44,000 locals with anxiety and depression, the most common mental difficulties, impacting roughly 1 in 4 people, making it our purpose to ensure everyone can develop a positive mental well-being ever more important. So I'm really pleased to be joined by some great panelists today to discuss the early warning signs, how you can help your employees and colleagues, and ideas and techniques to support mental well-being and resilience in the workplace, which not only improves the businesses, but also provides a better environment for our staff. It's Mental Health Awareness Week. It's a really important week to raise awareness, but obviously mental health isn't just 1 week. It happens all the time. It's every day. Everyone has mental health. I really believe that. And we have good days, bad days, and actually we can all play a role as individuals, as businesses, as managers in supporting our colleagues and our businesses. So it's really great to have a conversation like this today. It's the first time we've done this at Solent Mind, to bring people together to have a conversation, discuss it, some lessons away. Unfortunately, I can't stay, so I'm going to put you in the capable hands of Mandy. I really want to, but I have to go away to an SMT meeting at the lovely Lakeside Country Park. So we are trying to practice our well-being this week. But I am going to listen to recordings because I'm really fascinated to hear. So thank you to all our panelists who I'm going to pass over to Mandy to introduce herself and introduce all the panelists you have today for the Fireside chat. But thank you for joining us today. Thank you to all our panelists for giving their time to talk about mental health in the workplace. And happy Mental Health Awareness Week. It's maybe not happy a word to say, but I think we've got to recognise what it is and celebrate it and raise awareness. So thank you for joining us. I'll pass over to Mandy.
Lovely. Okay, thank you, Robert. And thank you everyone for joining us for the session today. My name is Mandy Wilshire. I manage the Workplace Wellbeing Training team here at Solent Mind, and joined by some lovely panelists today. I'll pass over to each of them to introduce themselves. So Becky, how would you like to introduce yourself this morning?
Good morning, everybody. My name's Becky. I am part of Mandy's team at Solent Mind. So I'm a workplace wellbeing trainer, and I have been in post as a member of staff with Solent Mind for about 2 years now. Prior to that, I was a volunteer. Prior to that, I was a service user. So I have a wealth of lived experience around mental health as well as some professional experience.
Okay. Amy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name's Amy Headley. I am the primary employment team leader in Portsmouth. We provide employment support to people who are accessing treatment at talking therapies in Portsmouth. And that can be helping people to look for work, or it could be helping people to return to work after a period of sickness. Or it also includes sort of job retention work and that kind of thing if people are having problems at work or need help with disclosure, that kind of thing.
Lovely. Thank you. Michelle.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Giles. I'm the Organisational Development Manager at Solent University. So one of the streams of work that I have is around equality and wellbeing for our 1,000-strong colleagues within the university, and also linking with a lot of the work that we do across the student cohort, mirroring services. So really delighted to be here today. Thanks for inviting us, Mandy.
Thank you for coming. Catherine.
Hi everyone, my name is Catherine Seaward. I'm the EDI specialist for Blake Morgan, a law firm with an office in Southampton. I look after our equality, diversity and inclusion initiatives, one of which is our mental health and wellbeing work stream. I was one of our first mental health first aiders who was trained, and was lucky enough to redo my training this year with Becky and Donna as my trainers.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. And last but not least, Angela.
Morning, everybody. Angela Day. I'm Head of People, Risk and Compliance at Mosul. We are the market operator within the business water market. We are based in Southampton and we have about 80 employees. I was delighted to be invited to this fireside chat. I've been in HR for over 25 years, always been passionate about wellbeing, always been passionate about inclusion, not because it's just the right thing to do, but because it makes business sense. So delighted to join this morning. Thank you very much. I also started my morning with a walk around Southampton Common, so I'm feeling great.
Wow. That's fun. That's fantastic. Thank you, Angela. Okay, let's get started because we've got some really good topics to discuss. I'm going to pose the topic and then raise hands to contribute, and we'll see how we go. My aim is to try and keep us to time, but I know that everybody in the room is so passionate that we'll see how that goes. But we can always come back and do it on another occasion. Lovely. Okay, so first thing we want to talk about, really, so it is Mental Health Awareness Week this week, as we know. That's why we're here. But what do you think defines mental health and well-being, and what does it look like for you in the workplace? And kind of talking around that, what are the most common mental health conditions or well-being concerns that your employers are talking to you about at the moment?
I'm happy to start. Just everyone's being polite for the first question, aren't they?
Yes.
So I think having good mental health and well-being, it comes down to balance. And for me, so having sort of, whether that's work and home or time for yourself versus time looking after others. I've got young children, and I know that when I feel like I don't have enough time for myself because I'm devoting all of my time to the kids or work, that's when my well-being and my mental health will suffer. So I think in general, it's that balance and achieving that in your life in all areas of life. And also being able to be open about any struggles that you're having, and knowing that that will be accepted and supported, and that there won't be kind of any negative ramifications, is probably quite a serious word to use, but that there's not going to be any negative reactions to any struggles that you may be facing.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Becky?
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, I completely agree with what you were saying about that idea of balance. I think for so many of us, we only pause to think about our mental health and our well-being when it becomes a challenge. I think it's really, really important to recognise the positive dimension of mental health and well-being as well. And like you say, to create that balance.
Okay. Michelle? Oh, you're on mute, Michelle.
Thank you. I completely agree with what Catherine said. I also think there's an element of being able to be your true self, both inside and outside of work, so that there's no conflict. Because I think often we see challenge where people are forced to behave in a certain way that might not necessarily be familiar or what they're used to conform maybe, or to actually deliver what's expected of them in the workplace. In terms of your question around kind of the themes that we're seeing at the moment, there's an awful lot, I'm not going to get into a political discussion, but there's an awful lot of constraints within the public sector around budget and resource and workload. And I think, we are seeing increasingly colleagues struggling with what's expected of them to be delivered in an environment where our workforce looks significantly different. And I think also there's COVID legacy of the way that we communicate with each other has fundamentally changed. So the expectation to be online, to be responding to emails whilst you're in a meeting, to be taking calls potentially if you've got your work linked to your mobile phone outside of work. I think the expectations on people and that they place on themselves, therefore, is really at the fore.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Amy, Angela, any thoughts on that as well?
In relation to wellbeing in the workplace, the main issues we're currently seeing relate to movement and sleep. So these are the two areas that are coming up through, for example, health assessment questionnaires, that people are suggesting they're not moving enough and their sleep quality is not great. So we're looking, what you'll know from Solent Mind, you came in March to deliver a sleep session, and we're obviously sort of focusing on movement as well, and what we can do to get people not going from meeting to meeting and actually getting up and moving around, chair yoga, that type of thing. So those are the main trends that we're seeing, that kind of the highest volume, if that makes sense, that are most kind of, yeah.
And those fundamental basic physical needs can really impact us, can't they, as well?
Absolutely, particularly the sleep one. I mean, we all know that lack of sleep has such an impact on our mental well-being. So yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, everybody. Amy.
Yes, I think from my perspective, obviously we support people that are accessing treatment through talking therapies. So they are people that are anxious and are depressed and need some support. By the time they get to my team, there's usually there's always some kind of employment related reason why they want support from my team. And one of the things that we're kind of seeing is quite an increase very recently, actually, in the number of people that are really worried about redundancy, about job security, and things like the cost of living. People are looking for better paid jobs, or people want to go and retrain into a better paid job. But I think what people don't realise is that actually before you go and retrain, you kind of need to take a bit of a pay cut. So when people realise that, again, that's kind of almost putting more pressure onto people in terms of feeling that in terms of their financial well-being, which obviously then affects their mental well-being and that kind of thing. So we're definitely seeing an increase in that at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. So obviously, you know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of pressures on people, which kind of leads me quite nicely into the next topic of discussion, which is around about creating an open culture for mental health. So, you know, too often people tell us that they're scared to tell their manager about a mental health problem, you know, worried for a number of reasons. So their problems can grow and can spiral. So, you know, how can people as a business, people within businesses, create a culture that supports people to be open about their mental health? Catherine.
Making sure I was unmuted. Thank you. I think I talk about this quite a lot in my role, so Richard will understand where I'm coming from, I'm sure. I think it's about creating a sense of psychological safety within the organisation, and that's something that's quite, it's not very tangible. It's just a feeling. That's really hard to gauge, obviously, but then it just comes down to an individual. I think a lot of it you can achieve by just keeping that conversation going all year round. Obviously awareness weeks are fantastic and it focuses a lot of activities, but as obviously we were discussing earlier, you want to keep the conversation going all year, not just have that kind of brief period of a lot of activity. And I think as well, if we can encourage colleagues, and in particular people who are in leadership positions, to share and be open about their own experiences, and particularly, you know, if they're comfortable sharing times when perhaps they've struggled, it carries some real power. We had an event where we invited Richard Martin from the Mindful Business Charter to speak, and he is a former lawyer, and obviously our business is we're a law firm, and for him to speak about his struggles, it carried a lot of weight with people because they identified so closely with him, and because he was in that profession when it happened. And I think if you see your colleagues sharing perhaps difficult things about their own experiences, it opens you up to talking about that yourself. We've seen it in events that we've run in the last 6 months or so, and it's been really powerful.
Lovely, Catherine. Yeah, I think like when you said at the start, the intangibleness of it, and kind of, it is quite hard to put your finger on. I think people often want a, you know, golden answer to what you can do, but it's bigger than that, isn't it? And it's like you say, keeping it going, everyone from, you know, the top down, living and breathing it. Thank you. Amy, I think your hand was next.
Yeah, I think in terms of trying to influence the culture, it's about, like Catherine was saying, it's about leadership, and really kind of spearheading that, and to use the cliche, leading by example, making sure it was something that we do in our team at the beginning of every meeting, which is really helpful, is that we have a wellbeing check-in before we even touch on anything. And I think that's kind of quite common across the whole of Solent Mind, where people do feel comfortable that they can share how they really are, and there's a support network around them. I think also the other thing, that one of the tools that we use that will be really helpful for other businesses, and something that we use with our clients when we support them, is using things like wellness action plans, and that kind of thing, so that it really helps somebody to identify what their triggers might be and what support they might need from their manager. And I think if a manager or somebody in a leadership position kind of really spearheaded that initiative and had that in place, it would be really helpful to kind of filter that down to all levels of staff, so that they do feel that comfortable to be able to share kind of what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and having that at the start of every meeting. The wellbeing check-in is really, really helpful. There's also something called the Manual of Me, which I came across in some training that I did last year. And the Manual of Me is about writing a short paragraph, maybe five different points about things that are helpful for other people to know about you, things that you're interested in, what they can talk to you about, what you like, what you don't like, and what can kind of make you feel a little bit anxious at work and that kind of thing. And that's also another really helpful document. There are lots of different ways of doing the Manual of Me, but again, that's another really good initiative that I think people can adopt quite easily.
Thank you, Amy. I think Michelle was next.
Thank you. Kind of building on what's been said already, clearly leadership is really important, and normalising the conversation about health and wellbeing, I think, is really key. We've done that in a number of different ways, both through kind of the more formal routes around our appraisal, or we call it PDR system, where there's an opportunity for regular check-ins with managers. But also we've created, the university itself's created channels. So our affinity groups, we have a menopause cafe, we have all sorts of different routes where people can actually go and have conversations about matters that are important to them in a less formal environment, so that, that collaboration, that opportunity to relax into conversations and therefore find parity with each other, we found being super helpful in terms of creating more discussion routes. We also have lots of different ways that people can have conversations. So we use what was Yammer, Viva Engage now, to have internal conversations online about key topics. And obviously we have Teams channels too. But then, we're lucky, we're quite a large organisation, so we can do that. I think we also look externally where we can to try and collaborate.
Thank you, Michelle. Angela.
A number of things that have already been said. The Wellness Action Plan in particular, we now introduce that to people at induction. So we kind of, again, put that to people and say, look, in your one-to-ones, talk to your manager about what good looks like for you, and what the triggers might be in relation to how, when you're not feeling great. We've trained obviously all our line managers in that as well, and encouraging them to use that. I think it is lots of different interventions, and all of the time. So I think even before someone chooses to join the organisation, having a window to the organisation that demonstrates the type of culture that you are, and then seeing that when they join and seeing that consistency. The role modelling is key. We use blogs quite a lot, and they are really powerful. So we've had stories about colleagues with OCD, colleagues, blogs related to kind of grief. So again, very open. And then last year's one of the most popular blogs was, I asked all of my trained mental health first aiders 2 questions. What do I do to keep mentally well? And when do I know I'm not feeling mentally well? And again, that was just great. It was 2 simple questions, and they all put in a photo of them kind of, enjoying life. But again, just sharing this is when I know that I'm not great, or I need help, or I'm not mentally well. So, and I think it's just generally, normalising the conversation, and it's relentless. It's never finished. And it has to start from, as I say, I think before the person joins the organisation, day one. And the critical piece of the culture for me is in your effective line managers, because you could have all the best role models in the world. You can have a CEO who, like ours, is very open and very inclusive. But if you've got a direct line manager who you can't speak with, or you don't feel comfortable with, or psychologically safe with, then it doesn't work so well. So it's all of those things together.
Lovely. Thank you, Angela. I can see lots of nods in agreement with what everybody's saying in the room, so clearly it resonates there. Becky, I think you had your hand up at one point and then put it down. Would you like to?
I do apologise. Yeah, I was just going to introduce the chat around wellness action plans. So thanks to Amy for bringing that in.
Lovely, thank you. And I can see there's a question in the chat about a template for wellness action plans. The best place to go and the place we use is the National Mind website. So if you go to Mind, type in wellness action plans, you will find them there. But we can share links as follow-up as well. So lovely. Thank you. With some such lovely stuff that everyone is doing, and I think sharing some ideas that we can all do a bit more with as well. So we'll go on to the next question, which is what approaches to improving mental health and well-being have been successful in your organisation so far? How do you help employees really thrive to have positive mental health and well-being at work? Who would like to kick this one off? Catherine.
I'll keep going first, it's fine.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I highlighted to Mandy in readiness for the call was we have a scheme that's called My Time. It's a discretionary leave allowance for staff. And they can use it for, we can use it for a number of different things. So it might be volunteering, celebrating a religious belief or a belief-based event. Well-being is one of the categories, and then the other is to fulfill a community-based role. So it's a scheme that's designed basically for people to use to support whatever is important to them as an individual. And there's no need to kind of explain what you're going to do with that time. So it's in addition to holiday as well. It's completely separate allowance. It's not something that carries over, but it's essentially, I think it's a week's worth of leave, pro rata obviously if you're part-time. So I've used mine personally to attend reflexology appointments. Because I've got quite young children, I found that I wasn't ever having time to do things like that for my own well-being, because I either had my kids or I was working, or it was at a time that things like that weren't available. So I used my Time day for that. And quite recently, I'm training for a race at the moment for the Cardiff Bay 10K. So I had a day where I kind of went for a run, and then I had reflexology, and then I did some like wellbeing journaling, which again I was struggling to find time for otherwise. And it fits in quite nicely with one of our other benefits. We've got a sort of flexible cash plan where you can use it for things like reflexology, Reiki, all sorts of complementary therapies. So that's one of our biggest ones that we're seeing good engagement with. And I think the flexibility and giving people that control makes a big difference, and giving them the autonomy to
lovely initiative. Well, thank you, Catherine. That sounds really great. Michelle.
We structure our wellbeing support around the 5 ways to wellbeing. So we have support across a number of different platforms. So just like you, Catherine, described, we've got leave that people can take either to do volunteering or for their development, or we have specific wellbeing days that people can take advantage of. We've got an in-house choir, so it's fantastic. People on every Tuesday come together and they learn different songs, and they have a really good opportunity to relax at lunchtime and do something for them. We're really lucky we've got a gym, so colleagues can go along to the gym and take advantage of the brilliant exercise facilities that are on campus. We're right by the park, so there's walks that take place during the day in the park. A lot of the activities that we put on for our student staff have access to as well. Whether or not they choose to take advantage is up to them. I think that element of choice is very much there for them. Then we've got the more formalised support. So, our employee assistance programme, we have a provider we use, an organisation called Health Assured, who people can contact if they need counselling support or more tailored support for them. And they've got an app that people can access. And then we'll run sessions through the year, either again informally as workshops or more formal training with yourselves. Mandy, thank you very much for coming on campus earlier on this year. So I think the ability for colleagues to choose is really important. We've got ambitious plans for how we take that forward as well. So you know, the approach around the menopause cafe that we've taken has really helped. Colleagues who've got particular concerns, who want to share ideas and solutions. I don't think there is a solution to what people go through in that scenario, but you know, the different drugs that might help, or different therapies that might help individuals, has been really, really useful. And we're planning on looking at that in terms of perhaps looking at how we support people going through cancer, or perhaps helping people who are going through particular challenges at home. So we'll see where that goes.
Thank you, Michelle. And I think sometimes, like you say, it's not about finding solutions. It's about having a group of people around you that you know what it's like, can empathise, and you can just offload a little bit too. So yeah. I think that's lovely. Angela.
To take my hand down as well. I'd like to come back to something that Michelle said in the first question, which is this piece around being your whole self, being your authentic self. I think it's quite difficult to thrive if you are investing energy in masking or feeling like you can't be yourself. So I think that for me is the critical piece to people being able to truly thrive at work. And how you do that is really back to the question we've just answered, Mandy. In my view, it's this a piece around creating a culture where people feel comfortable to share, comfortable to feel that they can ask for maybe flexibility, or you know, they have a need at a particular point in time, that the organisation will be supportive of that. So I think that's the key piece. We also have things like Health Assured, so again, signposting people. And then I think, as you're aware, Mandy, and your colleagues, over the last year, we've been offering and encouraging all of our colleagues to take up mental health training at all levels, whether that's awareness or right through to mental health first aid training. And the reason that we felt that was important is because I'm a firm believer that all of that raises awareness. It raises awareness. It removes stigma, it removes barriers. So the more people you've got in your organisation that feel confident to talk about it, and I think this is one of the challenges, if you don't have people managers, for example, that feel confident to have to ask the questions, then it's quite difficult to create the culture. So yeah, again, for me, it comes very much back to training people and managers to feel confident, to ask the questions, to not shy away from realising that someone's perhaps not themselves, behaving differently, and creating that culture where someone feels they can stand up and say, actually, do you know what, today or this week or this month or even this year, life is not great for me, and and what can we do to support?
Yeah, absolutely, Angela, thank you. And Becky, Becky's one of my trainers, and trains and delivers mental health first aiders. So really nice intro to Becky. What would you like to contribute?
Thank you. I wanted to come back to what Michelle shared around the idea of choice. I think that's a really, really important principle to take forward. It's absolutely excellent that we have policies and procedures and values that guide the way that we behave, but I think it's really important to remember that every person that is encountering a mental health challenge is an individual, and they're going to want to respond to that in a way that feels right to them. So yes, absolutely, I agree that looking at this holistically is what we absolutely need to do, but we need to be paying attention to people's lived experience and acknowledging and in some instances celebrating their lived experience and what we can learn from them. So yes, I think you're absolutely right, Angela, about kind of removing that stigma, removing that fear from that people have when making disclosures. I certainly that very much resonates with my own experiences. What people are going to think of me, they're going to say I'm not doing my job properly. We need to be addressing that as well. And I think you're quite right. Again, a lot of you have mentioned that a real fundamental about that is increasing people's knowledge and increasing those opportunities for education, but in a way that feels right to people. So that people feel empowered by their knowledge rather than daunted by what there is still left to learn. And I think you're absolutely right, that base level of knowledge, that base level of training for everybody, not just for line managers, will really help in that confidence piece, in that removing stigma as well.
Thank you, Becky. Catherine.
sorry, just coming back around to me again. I wanted to pick up on what Angela was saying around the kind of getting people in different leadership positions and things to kind of have a base level of knowledge and spread the word. We're quite strategic in our approach to our mental health first aiders scheme. So initially when we started, it would kind of be on a volunteer basis, but particularly this last year, we have really looked at our business and said, right, where are our mental health first aiders currently? Where are our gaps? You know, have we got a good gender balance? Have we got a good spread geographically, different areas of the business, and also bringing in more people who are in leadership positions and particularly partners for our business. And we've seen a real change in some areas where there's been someone who's, you know, perhaps just trained and they get it, and we kind of use our network of mental health first aiders to spread the word, kind of watch out for hotspots is probably the wrong word, but just to pick up on little areas where perhaps there's a lack of understanding or additional training that might be needed. And really, it's quite a wide-ranging role for us as a business. So we participate in the awareness raising activities, but really have a kind of sounding board, particularly for Richard and myself who lead the group. So we utilise that group really for that purpose. It's been really effective.
Lovely. Thank you, Catherine. That's fantastic. So, you know, some such great contributions there, and again, lots of stuff that's going on. Then we'll move on to the next one. Does anybody have anything else they want to contribute around that initiatives to help people thrive? Lovely.
Mandy.
Okay. Yes.
There
Yes,
are
Angela.
the questions that are coming through in the chat. And I didn't know if you wanted to tackle some of them now or come back at the end. So one was from Richard, and he was interested to know the panel's view on embracing stress and difficult situations in order to help people's resilience. And we also have another one from Rebecca, who rightly pointed out the gender balance on the panel and on the call today, and how we might address that too in the conversations.
So that's a really interesting one, isn't it? Shall we welcome contributions for Richard's question then, if anybody's got any thoughts on that one? Or actually, I was going to say, if we can come back to that, if people can maybe have some thinking time on that one rather than put everybody on the spot. So Richard's question in the chat was, in developing a positive approach to mental health and wellbeing, what is the panel's view on embracing stress and difficult situations in order to help people build resilience? So we'll aim to have some time to touch back on that one at the end. And then I think the other point was about the gender balance, and actually we'll think some thoughts about that one as well. But whether we can do that, whether we can sort that one out here and now, I'm not really sure. Lovely. Thank you, Angela. Thank you for pointing those out. I got so involved in the discussion, you miss out on the chat, don't you? Okay, so we wanted to touch on talking about flexible working as well. So we know that flexible working can bring many benefits in the workplace. So what do you think the starting point for that would be? And do you have any advice for how to shape productive discussions between managers and staff? And in light of the recent changes around flexible working, being employees being able to request that kind of from day one, really. So topical one about flexible working for you. Who would like to kick that one off? Other than Catherine. No, you're welcome to, Catherine.
Why not? Just keep it. So I think personally, really starting from a position of trust in your staff, and focusing on output rather than that kind of counting hours in terms of how long they're in work. You know, if they can work effectively from another location or at home or at different hours, then that's a good thing, and people should be empowered to do so. I think one of the things that we talked about earlier on was that creating that culture and how people can thrive. I think, and this rings true for me personally, it may be a personal thing for me, I don't know, but people feeling that they have some kind of control over their lives, without it going too far, obviously. But yeah, I think having that kind of sense that you're trusted as a member of staff and that you've got an element of control over your work and how you work is really important. We try to balance that with giving people opportunities to come together. So a lot of our teams will kind of structure their days in the office so that they are together. It might be because a member of staff from another office is coming to visit, or a particular activity, or just on a certain day of the week, they all tend to come in. And some of those things just happen organically, because people want to be together. But if for any reason, you know, someone in a particular circumstance can't do that, then that's okay. You know, we take quite a flexible approach, but we do also keep an eye on if there's someone who we aren't seeing consistently, then touching base with them and seeing if there's anything that's stopping them from coming in or anything that's concerning them, and having that open conversation with them. And I think not expecting it to be a kind of one size fits all approach is really important as well. And also it's not necessarily something that is static. So I had a prolonged period of ill health last year. I was off work for 14 weeks altogether. And if I hadn't been able to work from home almost exclusively during that phased return to work, I would have had to be off a lot longer. And, you know, I had a physical illness where I was exhausted a lot of the time. If I'd have needed to come in initially even once a week, which is what I tend to do, I would have found that really difficult and quite damaging physically and mentally. You know, but there's that feeling of, should I be going in more? Are people going to question what's going on? But I'm very lucky. I've got an incredibly supportive manager, and she's been absolutely brilliant in my recovery, and I'm doing a lot better now. But knowing that she has that trust in me and that I have that ability to make those decisions as to what works for me at any given time makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I think Michelle was next.
Thanks, Mandy. And kind of building on, I completely agree with everything Catherine said. I think that approach towards accountability, trust and empowerment for people is super important. And for us, I think it's also about providing the principles. So if we can provide the framework within which both our managers and our colleagues can actually operate, and give them some examples. People like examples, they like case studies, they like to see lived experiences in any situation, not just around how they might work. Then they can look at the similarities that might work for them, and they can have those conversations that are sometimes quite difficult, depending on their relationship with their manager. We've done a lot of work with kind of defining how people have better conversations with each other. We're also doing some work to help our colleagues to understand how the things have changed with regards to leave policy. And we've been speaking with our affinity groups, our EDI groups, if you like, our women's network in particular, are interested in the recent changes around flexibility, to talk to one of the questions that's come up in the chat. Don't know why it's women. But I think, you know, it's about looking at what works best for both the organisation and the individual, and trying to find some common ground.
Lovely. Thank you, Michelle. I'll go Becky and then Amy. I'm quite sure who raised their hands first, but Becky.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I absolutely really agree with what you just said about getting that balance right between what the individual needs and wants in order to feel productive and supported, but also between, you know, what the company requires from them in terms of output. You know, obviously, if somebody's been, you know, appointed to a role, there is that trust there at the beginning that they will be able to deliver on the requirements of that role. And I do think it's a really important piece in terms of people's own self-confidence and their own feelings of resilience, to give them the autonomy to be able to choose how they work in the best way for them. But picking up on something that Catherine was saying, I think that actually what's really, really powerful is if we retain that flexible approach in times of, for example, mental ill health. off if somebody is feeling like perhaps what they need to be productive has changed, you know, because of their circumstances or whatever it is that they're going through. And we need to be able to keep pace with that. And I think that's something really interesting that I'm seeing more and more in discussion forums, is actually, you know, what I signed up for on day one and what I agreed to and what was in my wellness action plan on day one isn't necessarily how I feel today. So how is the company going to step in and ensure that I still feel supported and that I still feel resilient and that I still feel able to deliver on these things, because my circumstances and my context is ever changing.
Thank you, Becky. And Amy.
Yeah, so my team, we are a remote service. So in terms of working flexibly, it's something that actually works very, very well for my team. And just picking up on all of your points really about kind of feeling that trust, that relationship that you build, focusing on outputs, are all the good things that have come out of us at having that ability to work flexibly. But I think in terms of flexible working, it should be part of that conversation. Again, picking up on your point, Catherine, when you're doing your return to work, if you're taking time off sick and you're looking at a phased return, I think flexible working can be a really positive, a positive way for somebody to get back to work. But agreeing that there's some support around that, so that they can come to work, they can bring them their whole selves to work, they can be present and do a good job.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Lovely. Thank you, everybody. So we can't possibly forget that it's Mental Health Awareness Week, and this year's theme is movement. Are your organisations doing anything to encourage your staff to move about more this week, or in general? Do you have any simple ideas or tips that businesses can do to help their staff move more, especially if they spend a lot of time sitting behind the desk? And Angela's already alluded to some of this, and first to raise her hand. So Angela.
So something that we implemented this year, Mandy, is that because we've got so many more people trained as mental health champions, this year I've basically empowered that group to deliver the calendar for the year. So I've said, okay, what is it you're passionate about? What do you want to do? So this month we've got a couple of colleagues who are leading on the month of May, and this week we started the week with a talk by a wonderful lady, Anna, who is a channel swimmer and also leads the Luna Foundation. So she was talking about her life and how suicide has impacted that, started that. We've signed up to the kind of the Step Up for May. So we've got a step challenge going on, and we're doing that in partnership with our Charity of the Year, No Limits. So that again has enabled us to kind of link kind of volunteering and, you know, and our Charity of the Year with the step challenge. We use our kind of Teams channels as well, so people can kind of upload pictures and kind of talk about what it is they're up to, and encourage people to kind of join in kind of in the walking. And then at the end of the week, we've got one of our colleagues who we're very fortunate went away and did some. She took a sabbatical and went away to India to learn how to be a yoga teacher. And so she is going to do some sort of chair yoga with us. And this won't be the first time that Liv has done this with us. She often does kind of sessions. Every week we come together as a whole organisation on Teams. As I say, we're about 80, so it's not challenging for us to do this. And Liv will often take 5-10 minutes in the session and do some yoga stretches with us, or we'll use that to do some mindfulness activity. So we've got loads going on this week, and you know, it will continue for the rest of May and continue for the rest of the year. Back to my point around kind of, you know, that it has to be, you know, something we've said already on today's session. You know, it can't be about Mental Health Awareness Week. It has to be about mental health every day.
Lovely, thank you, Angela. And remind me of one of the things that we do within our team. We have a monthly wellbeing hour where we always try and we do something different every month, be it sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's virtual. The last one that we all walk, those of us who are in the office, we all walked up to the Common, did a walk around Common, had an ice cream. We've done a rainbow walk where we spotted things of different colours and taken photographs. We've done treasure hunts and all kinds of things like that. So it's just a really nice thing to kind of keep us, you know, chance to get together and do something as well. And sometimes we've done them virtually as well if people can't be there in person. So that's a really nice thing that we do. Catherine.
So one of the things that we do when it comes to any activities like this, and they do sort of go on through the year as well, is we take a slightly different approach for each of our offices. So we've got 5 offices in total, and they do have quite different cultures, different people within them, obviously, who have different interests. So we tend to try and make sure that the activity that we're running is best suited to that group. So that's something that we always try and include in our plans. This week we've got things like wellbeing walks, we've got step challenges going on, and we've got one of our offices is doing a trek on Thursday, which is linked to Charity of the Year and partnership, the same as Angela said. But I was also really keen to include some more inclusive options so that it wasn't all big fitness challenges, because obviously that's not always achievable for everybody. So we have included desk yoga, as Angela mentioned, and even just, we don't have anyone, we're not lucky enough to have someone who can lead an actual session. But I found some really nice resources online to share, just like images with proper description of what to do on our hub. And that's made a really nice album to put onto the intranet as well. And we've also got one group kind of running a session to do that via Teams, which is quite nice because then that captures people who aren't in the office as well. I like what Mandy was saying about the different themes to the walks. That's a really good idea. I might steal that at some point. We've done things like photo competitions, just to give it a bit more. We're very competitive by nature, unfortunately. So yes, that always helps to get people more engaged. And the other thing that we've done is we have got quite a few people in the business who are doing fitness challenges or have done them recently. So I mentioned I'm doing a race this weekend. We've got people running the London Marathon and various other things. So what we did for this week to kind of draw out more of the mental health content was we've reached out to those people and asked them a few simple questions about, you know, how did it impact your mental health? What are your plans for the future? Just things like that to kind of bring those activities more into this week. We've got some really nice content from them as well, and just tips from people who've undertaken things like that. So yeah, a range of things going on for us.
That's lovely, Catherine. And 2 points on there, I think, is around the range and the choice, and acknowledging, you know, people need to find something that's comfortable and doable for them. And I love the stuff where you said talking about the benefits for mental health as opposed to just shouting about what people are doing. You know, so what does that mean for you? You know, what are the benefits for you for doing that? So some really lovely examples there. Thank you, Catherine. Becky, I think you were next.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on what Catherine said about how movement doesn't necessarily always have to be a massive challenge. I think that it's about finding the joy in the movement. So, you know, this is something that I often bring up in my training courses, but, you know, like the joy of a kitchen disco, or you know, something that you can think of, you know, the silliest thing you can think of as a way to get moving. It doesn't necessarily have to be formal or a big undertaking. It could be moving for 10 seconds. If it puts a smile on your face, it's worth doing. So yeah, I really like what Catherine was saying about that kind of curiosity behind the motivations for it. And, you know, I love the ethos of sharing those ideas, because it might spark an idea in somebody else, or they might think, okay, well, I don't want to do that, but I can tweak it and make it my own somehow.
Lovely. Yeah, bringing in those little things. And we've got running through this week some tips on our social media as well, simple things around getting moving. So do take a look at that as well. Michelle.
I think kind of building on the points that have been made already, for us, we do an awful lot with University Mental Health Day, which was last month for us. So the more structured approach to things, I think, you know, we're looking at the enduring, how we help people to move. So for us, this week's been about pointing out options, again, to that point around trust, because we've got a lot of colleagues for whom exercise doesn't necessarily form a large part of their priority list. So thinking about, you know, what could you do to actually move more in your day job, be it take a choice to use a sit-stand desk, because we have some of those in our office, we're very lucky, or it could be take the stairs, or it could be you have a walking catch up with your line manager rather than in a meeting room. Those things that actually provide more opportunity than just doing things the way that people have always done them. And I think it's also just highlighting the services, the many different services that are on offer for our colleagues.
Lovely. Thank you, Michelle. Fantastic. Some really good stuff going on there. So I'm just keeping an eye on the clock, and we've got one further question. And then if we've had some time to consider the question that was in the chat, we'll come back to that for a few minutes as well. So if we can do the last one, which we said was, what else are you doing to boost mental health in the workplace? So this is an opportunity for anything that you haven't said yet that you want to share with us, to say so now. Michelle.
So I'm conscious we touched on the cost of living crisis early on in the discussion, and we haven't kind of gone back to it. So one of the other things that we've done with the student agenda and also colleague agenda in place, as we have a number of colleagues who are on minimum wage, is we've introduced a pantry where colleagues can sign up. It's confidential if they need to use that service. And we've linked with external partners as well, so that people can benefit where they need to support on basic groceries. The uptake has been quite surprising. We've also introduced cost of living loans, so allowances for colleagues who may need to touch on money where they may not be able to fund certain things that they need to fund. We've brought in financial support from external partners to have conversations with colleagues. We've had Costco come in and give Costco discounts. So we've started thinking about the financial elements. I mentioned the 5 ways to wellbeing. So this kind of links into that stream of how we help people who are seriously stressed out about the cost of things. We've got Sodexo, an external partner in-house, who we work with on a number of the equality and wellbeing initiatives that we have, and looking at different discounted restaurant options that they can provide. So we've got a specific range of things that people can access in our on-site shop. So trying to help take that pain away from colleagues when they're coming to work.
Thank you, Michelle. Some really practical, fundamental stuff that you're doing there as well. Thank you, Angela.
Just to build on what Michelle said, we access the bank that we work with, HSBC, who run financial wellness and kind of wellbeing sessions. So I just wanted to mention it because it was kind of something that we sort of came across that was part of the overall offering with HSBC. So I would just want to kind of put it out there for anyone that's looking at the webinar, that if you're in relation to financial wellbeing, I'd be very surprised if the banks that you're working with don't do something similar. And again, they run something called I think Always On, I think it's called. So they basically just consistently run these webinars through the year, and we simply share the calendar with colleagues, and they can dip in and out as they want to. So yeah, just wanted to flag that, maybe something helpful for people.
Thank you, Angela. Anyone else on that one? No, so we've got just a couple of minutes before we wrap up to see if anyone has any thoughts on Richard's question. And again, like I say, we are hoping to do some more of these sessions, so maybe it can roll into that one as well. But what's our view on embracing stress and difficult situations in order to help people build resilience? Angela. Oh, everyone's got, yes, lovely. Angela.
Yeah, so my hand constantly going up and down as we were saying, the answer we won't. Feel really, really strongly about this one. Stress, because stress is good for us. That level of stress is good for us, and it's what motivates us and drives us. But we know that too much stress is not great for us, and we also know that not enough stress is great for us. So there is that optimum. And I'm a big supporter of kind of ensuring that you build resilience, that when things happen with people, you talk through, what people can learn, how people can grow. I'm not trying to suggest anything in relation to some about the mental health conditions and illnesses that we have, but just generally from a resilience perspective. And I always use, ever since I did my mental health first aid training, always use the stress container, because it's such a fantastic tool, because it really does capture the whole stress picture, you know, that container of what's coming in the top, what are you doing that's healthy, that's kind of letting out that stress. And normally what happens when people are feeling stressed is they're either not doing that stuff at the bottom, whether it's getting good sleep or exercising or connecting with people, or there's something major coming in the top that is just making it overwhelming. So you know, I use the stress container a lot in discussions with people, and for me it comes back to you know, honesty again, recognizing that there are times when you're more resilient than other times, and being honest. Certainly as mental health first aiders, you know, we will sometimes say, you know, I'm okay, but I can't take anything more on for anyone else right now. You know, we do that. I think also it's worth noting, you know, particularly for women, our resilience can literally change with our cycle. So, you know, recognizing and again talking about the fact that, you know, at the impact of hormones on women of all ages can really impact how we feel and our level of resilience.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Like a topic. That feels like a topic for another conversation, doesn't it? Definitely. Lovely. Amy.
Yeah, so I think going all the way back to the beginning in a nice little circle, it comes back to balance, doesn't it? I think having a level of stress is, as Angela was saying, it's good for us. It's where we feel challenged, it's where we feel motivated, it's where we feel driven, and it's where people can really start to grow and develop their skills further. But I think, again, it's bringing it back to the wellness action plan again. It's if you've got a wellness action plan in place, then you can recognise when that stress starts to become too much, and then you can start to manage it. I mean, I was kind of reading a report the other day. I think it was Vitality UK did some research on stress at work, and there were 56% of people, I think it was, that said a healthy work-life balance was the most important thing for them to alleviate stress. So again, it kind of brings it full circle, right back to the very beginning again. But yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Lovely. Michelle.
Building on what everyone said so far, I think, Richard, is a great question. I think it's the individual approach that we need to think about here, because people will present with different reactions, responses, and how they see stress will be very different depending on their own individual makeup. I think we've also got to consider whether or not there are any contributing factors to how people deal with stress. I'm thinking specifically around neurodiversity and any specific hidden disabilities that we're not aware of. And helping people to build resilience, I think that's fundamental in our world, which is ever changing. I mean, look at the impact that ChatGPT's had on us. Might not necessarily seem to create stress, but it will do in the long term when it starts to take people's jobs away. So I think, you know, it's all about perspective, and every organisation should be helping to build people's resilience in a way that is specific to the individual needs rather than generic.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, well, that seems like a really good time to wrap up, because we're just getting to the end of the hour. So it feels like there's so much more to say, and hopefully we can come back and do some more of these sessions. Thank you to all the panelists for attending and spending some time with us this morning and sharing your insights. It's been really, really great to listen to. Like we've said a few times throughout the session, it is Mental Health Awareness Week this week, so please do take a look at our website and our resources for our Thrive Inside campaign that we're running throughout the week. But like we've already said, it doesn't end here. It's not just for the week. We want to do more. If you want to find out more about my training team and what we do within Solent Mind, then you can find that out on our website as well. We just want to do more of this, want to have more of these conversations. So once again, thank you so much to the panelists for attending. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Michelle, Catherine, and Angela for spending the time with us today. We will be circulating the recording after the session, and please do enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of Mental Health Awareness Week.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.
Mandy.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye bye.